Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. These words from Carl Jung strike at the very core of human existence. Most of us live our lives without realizing that our actions, choices, and even our sense of identity are heavily influenced by forces hidden deep within us. We admire great figures like Leonardo da Vinci, Albert Einstein, or Nelson Mandela, believing their purpose was tied to extraordinary talent or historical achievement. But Jung argued that true purpose has nothing to do with comparison or greatness, it has everything to do with uncovering the truth of who we are. According to Jung, the psyche is a vast system that includes both the conscious and unconscious mind. At the center of the conscious sits the ego, everything we know about ourselves. But beneath it lies the shadow, the unacknowledged, repressed aspects of our being. Within the shadow are not only flaws and fears, but also hidden strengths, instincts, and untapped creativity. The journey of life, Jung believed, is not about escaping the shadow, but about facing it, integrating it, and transforming it into a source of meaning. In this script, we will explore, step by step, how Jung's philosophy can help you discover your life's unique purpose. From meeting your hidden self to transforming darkness into power, from taking decisive action to embracing fear and imperfection, you will learn how to live with authenticity, balance, and true meaning. Jung says, your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams, who looks inside, awakes. Everyone has a unique meaning and purpose in life, depending on who you are and what you want. As a result, you need to know who you are before you can begin to figure out the purpose of your life. Many people believe they know themselves well. You might think you're familiar with your traits, strengths, weaknesses, and desires, so you might be tempted to dive straight into finding your life's purpose. However, in order to truly know yourself, you have to do what Jung called self-realization. Each person is made up of both conscious and unconscious parts, the aspects of ourselves we are aware of, and those we are not. The shadow, or dark side, is the hidden part of our unconscious that holds repressed desires, emotions, and traits. For instance, your shadow might contain feelings of laziness, envy, or anger, as well as hobbies or interests that you're ashamed of or wish you had outgrown. Because the shadow resides in the unconscious, you're often unaware of what's in it. These traits have been repressed and ignored for so long that they no longer surface in your thoughts. Instead, you tend to over-identify with your persona, the role you unconsciously play to be liked or appreciated by others. This persona acts like a mask you wear when interacting with the world, and you may have multiple masks for different situations. Reintroducing yourself to your shadow requires genuine effort. Engaging in shadow work, or getting to know your dark side as Jung called it, involves regularly stepping back and reflecting on your behavior, thoughts, and feelings in daily life. This could be done through journaling or meditation. Ask yourself, why did I act the way I did? Did it feel authentic? Why or why not? What was my initial instinct in a given situation? How would I feel if the roles were reversed? It's about interrogating yourself as if you were questioning someone else. Jung emphasized that getting to know your shadow doesn't mean identifying with it. You don't have to define yourself by the traits you usually hide. For example, if your shadow houses anger, you don't need to see yourself as an angry person. Instead, simply acknowledge these traits' existence, recognize and accept that they are a part of you. Another way your hidden shadow traits often surface is through judgment of others. The traits or behaviors you despise in others are often the ones you fear in yourself. This is called projection. So, whenever you find yourself angry at or irritated by someone else's behavior, take a moment to ask, do I ever exhibit this tendency? If not, why not? Could this be a shadow trait of mine? According to Jung, those who harshly judge selfishness often repress their own selfish thoughts, and those intolerant of impatience in others may be battling their own impatient tendencies. By taking time each day to sit down, perhaps journal, and ask yourself these probing questions, you begin to bring the unconscious into consciousness, truly getting to know yourself. It's important to continue doing shadow work regularly. As you change, there's always more to discover. Making a habit of shadow work is key to continuously getting closer to a meaningful life. In the words of Jung, I don't aspire to be a good man. I aspire to be a whole man. Now that you've found out about your unconscious, and perhaps less desirable dark traits, you might be wondering, how can this help me save my life? In fact, you might feel worse about yourself after your self-realization, because you can no longer ignore all your bad sides. Jung acknowledged that figuring out who you truly are is an intensely painful and frightening process. Many people think that by repressing bad parts of themselves, by never showing them, is a good way to get rid of them fully. After all, aren't those who can hold in their anger the most gentle people? And those who push through their laziness, the most productive people? Well, yes, and no. While it is good to want to be better, ignoring traits will not make them go away. Repressing shadow traits often gives those traits more power. They fester deep inside you, and then, when you're tired, stressed, emotional, or at a breaking point, they suddenly burst out of you. People who don't acknowledge their anger are the ones who have scary outbursts every now and then. People who ignore their laziness end up experiencing burnouts. Ignoring something does not make it go away. So, now that you actually know your shadow, you can finally do something with it. Whatever you find in your shadow, your dark traits, make them useful. Anger, for example, is only bad if it is excessive or unwarranted. But when someone genuinely hurts you, anger can actually help you advocate for yourself. The question you should ask yourself is, when is it right to act on an emotion, and when is it better not to? When should I lean into my mask and persona, and when do I not have to? By thinking about your emotions in this nuanced sense, rather than thinking of them as bad or good, you will improve your life and well-being tremendously. Envy can be a motivator. Laziness can get you well-needed rest. Impatience can make you more active, if the context is right. In other words, you have to find ways to integrate everything you find in your shadow into your personality instead of ignoring it. Your shadow is not here to punish you, but rather to teach you. And your repressed traits are here to stay. Only if you accept and embrace your dark qualities can you actually improve yourself. The self-knowledge and ability to use all sides of yourself is what you need to find out your life's purpose. Once your shadow is self-integrated, you become more yourself. You will be balanced, harmonious, and authentic. Once you've figured out how to use your shadow, you have figured out who you truly are, and thus it will become much easier to figure out what you truly want and need from life. Self-improvement is another form of shadow work that never ends. There is always more to improve. When you continuously keep improving yourself, you are adding meaning to your life. According to Jung, you are what you do, not what you say you'll do. When you know who you are, how you can best handle your dark traits, and what you believe in, you have to show it. The purpose of life cannot be found in thoughts, but in practice. Jung thought that self-realization had to be shown in what you do rather than what you say. After all, you can only say you are a certain way, and want certain things. If you act like it, this means that you should not live your life reactively. Do not only react to what happens to you, but also initiate something in your life. Instead of waiting for people to befriend you, go out of your way to make friends. Instead of waiting for that promotion, come up with a plan and pursue it. And instead of waiting for your life to achieve the meaning you want it to, make your life meaningful with your actions. Currently, most of us do live reactively, even those who actively seek out their shadow and improve themselves. Working on yourself is a great first action one can take, true. But it is not enough to truly start taking action in other areas of life either. In fact, after doing shadow work one might think they can now sit back and relax. But sitting back in your life is what gets you stuck in meaninglessness. Okay, but how do you start living actively? Simple, by challenging yourself. When you've taken the steps to continuously explore your shadow and improve yourself based on what you find, you should also keep taking some extra steps. Frequently ask yourself questions like, what do I believe in? What spiritual or religious beliefs, what moral principles, what values? How do I act on a daily basis? What do I want to do this year? And the next 5 years? How do I want to contribute to the world? What do I expect from others? You could journal about these questions, or meditate on them. The answers are clear clues as to what kind of actions to take. You might, for example, want to become a published author. A lot of people do. But a lot of the people that do want to become a published author also do not take many steps to achieve that goal. They wait for inspiration to strike, for their agenda to clear up, and eventually for the book to write itself. They still live reactively. When the time is just right, the book will just flow out of them, or so they think. So, what would someone who wants to become an author have to change? An aspiring author that actually takes action would write on a frequent, scheduled basis, whether they feel like it or not. When they get stuck, they would actively seek out advice or exercises to help them move along. They would finish a story, if not thanks to motivation, then due to discipline. And then, they would proactively reach out to people in the publishing industry, such as literary agents. Of course, many people do not derive meaning from career goals. Instead, their personal ideas about their lives might be a little more abstract. You might want to positively influence new generations, for instance. This could be done in many ways, by becoming a parent, a teacher, starting a charity for youth, becoming a youth counselor, a politician, and more. It is then on you to decide in what way you want to achieve this goal, and what actions that requires. Whenever you ask yourself questions about your morals and beliefs, you will then have to decide what way you can work towards them, and what actions you might need to take. It is quite possible to survive when living reactively, but it is not possible to find meaning in a reactive life. Meaning requires action. Jung once said, "Where your fear is, there is your task." One of the main reasons people live reactively is not mere laziness, and often not even a lack of motivation. Most of the time, the avoidance of action results from fear. Action requires risk, which can be scary. When you have an idea for a book, you have to risk being disappointed by your own writing in order to get it down on paper. Once you've written a book, you have to be ready for many rejections if you want to get it published. Every single action you can take can result in something negative. You need to be brave to be active. But bravery does not stem from a lack of fear. Fear is not to be avoided. If you do, it would go back into your shadow and rule your life even more. Instead, it should be acknowledged. When you have to take a certain action but feel unable to do so, ask yourself why. Am I scared? What am I scared of? What are the things that could go wrong? And how could I deal with them? Fear is often contained by preparation. But do not confuse preparation with rumination or anxiety. Focus only on likely scenarios, not outlandish ones. When you want to publish a book, be prepared to be rejected by many agents, or even to find no one interested in representing it. But also be prepared to find an agent, or to have it published. Do not, however, ruminate about how agents and publishers might reject you, or about someone stealing your book idea, or about being laughed at. Those thoughts are unlikely and unhelpful. By analyzing your fear and handling it in the form of preparation, you've already dealt with a great deal of it. The feeling will most likely never fully disappear. So when you've done what you can to minimize your fear, there is only one thing left to do: dive into the deep. Bravery requires you to face your fears rather than get rid of your fears. Nobody who has ever done anything special has done so by avoiding what they're scared of. As Jung said, where your fear is, that is where your next task is. Once you know what you're scared of, you also know what is likely to give your life the most meaning. According to Jung, I'd rather be whole than good. Human beings are not perfect, nor are they meant to be. Many people waste their lives trying to appear good, flawless, or morally untouchable. But Jung believed that true wholeness requires the integration of both good and bad traits. To deny the bad within yourself is to deny reality. You can never be whole if you repress or reject parts of yourself that society, religion, or family have labeled as unacceptable. This does not mean that you should indulge every dark impulse. Rather, it means you must recognize, accept, and understand the darker sides of your psyche, the envy, anger, jealousy, pride, selfishness, and cruelty. By acknowledging these parts of yourself, you prevent them from controlling you unconsciously. The shadow, once faced, loses its destructive grip. But the shadow ignored becomes the master. For example, someone who denies their anger might think they are peaceful, but in reality, they are repressing rage that eventually explodes in destructive ways. On the other hand, a person who admits their anger can learn how to channel it into discipline, passion, or even courage. Accepting the bad makes you whole because you can consciously redirect it into strength. Life is not about being good in the eyes of others, it is about being authentic. And authenticity requires courage. If you try to be only good, you will never know yourself fully. But when you are willing to accept the bad, you also uncover hidden potential. You begin to live honestly, free from masks, free from shame, and free from the exhausting burden of false perfection. As Jung insisted, wholeness, not goodness, is the real goal. Carl Jung taught that life's deepest meaning is not something we stumble upon, it is something we create through self-awareness, responsibility, and courage. His wisdom challenges us to move beyond comfort and illusion, to face our shadows, and to take conscious action. He reminds us that the journey to meaning is not free from fear, pain, or imperfection. Instead, it is through fear, pain, and imperfection that we discover who we truly are. To live a meaningful life, you must dare to confront your inner darkness, align your actions with your beliefs, and embrace the risks that come with growth. You must stop running from fear and instead see it as the compass pointing to your greatest tasks. You must stop pretending to be flawless and instead accept your humanity in its wholeness. Meaning is not about success, wealth, or reputation. Meaning is about becoming whole, integrating the light and the dark, the good and the bad, the known and the unknown. Jung believed that every human being is on a lifelong path of individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. And in that process lies the only kind of fulfillment that endures. So if you want your life to matter, don't wait for meaning to appear. Create it, through courage, through honesty, and through the willingness to face yourself completely.